My boss just came onto me using my career as leverage. I've been in my new department for just over a month. My direct supervisor, Levi, fake name of course, took an immediate interest in me and started coaching me on how to excel in the business world. It was incredible. All his insight, all his advice, I readily was able to see it changing my life for the better. He asked me to work weekend overtime with him after the first week, and of course I was eager to oblige. That Saturday was when he first started explicitly talking about his former intimate experiences. He was very chill about it, and I wanted to be chill too, so I participated. After that day, he kept suggesting we drink some brews together at my place. I finally conceded and invited him over, where we talked about work and, yep, more intimate stuff. He got me a quasi-promotion at work, the best he could do so the others wouldn't get jealous, apparently, and after a couple of weeks invited himself over again. He told me I better drink 3 beers this time, and if he had more than 3 then I'd be in trouble. I'm sorry, what? What trouble would she be in exactly, mate, if you had more than a few beers? Huh? Yeah? Just slight threats? Wow, that turns me on. Well, fam, you all guessed it. He came over, drank beer, told me to stand up and turn around, told me how incredible I look and how I'm a Ferrari and just need the right driver in the seat. He told me that he wants to teach me how to separate my emotions from work, and how he wouldn't want my emotions to get in the way of a promotion. Of course, he had to call me for that last part, because he just hates texting. He told me he had to teach me how to separate emotions and to have a good time so I could fly in my career, because I have so much potential. What I love about these kind of situations is how terrible these guys are at trying to be subtle. Like, it's so obvious you want to bang, dude. Congrats on your creative writing workshop you did last weekend. It's not gonna help you. See, I don't think you really fathom it, mate, but when it comes to wanting to sleep with someone, it's not about you being good at words, it's about them wanting to sleep with you as well. You gotta kinda work out that hurdle first before the creative flirting. Can't believe this all happened. It freaking happened. I'm so shook right now I don't know what to do, other than show up tomorrow and pretend like nothing happened. Business as usual. He said he's getting promoted to out of state in the next few weeks, so hopefully that's not a lie too. I am just so unbelievably shook that the nightmare of a male boss using a woman's career against her for intimacy actually happened to me. I've heard so many stories, but never thought. Biggest supporter saying to report his butt to HR. See how fine that promotion goes with an intimate harassment accusation against him. You're a Ferrari? Then run his butt over at top speed, girl. And hell yeah, I absolutely endorse that. Maybe Ferrari will give you a sponsorship deal. Though, as someone else also points out, so we should remind ourselves that HR is notorious for protecting the company, not you as the employee. So, what does she do about the situation? Because she does end up telling people. She ends up telling some very important people. I really don't know where to begin. I ultimately decided not to report him because, based on the way he talked about our director, I thought they'd take his side instead of mine. Everyone kept telling me, HR is here to protect the company, not you, and I was on the bottom of the totem pole. So I went back to work every day and acted like nothing happened. 2 days after he had come over, I sent him a long text as a form of documentation, detailing back to him what he had said to me over the phone, and said I didn't want either of us to risk our careers, so it'd be best to avoid all this intimate talk altogether. I also told him I wasn't intimately attracted to him, and therefore had no interest in having it on with him. Now, as a man, when you receive that sort of information from a woman that you've been flirting with and such, respectfully, you should apologize. Let them know that I'm sorry for misreading any signals that I thought you were giving me. I absolutely understand where you're coming from and respect your decision. Because, my boys, it's not the issue that you're flirting that is the problem. It's that you're flirting with someone when it's not warranted or even wanted. And yes, how do you know that she doesn't want it? Well, she'll tell you. She'll make it clear, like she has right now. Put a stop to it. But of course, what does this man in a position of power do? Well, he reminds us fellow males that the bar is so easily low to impress women. He had told me time and time again that he always gets the yes. I know, super rapey. So I didn't want him to have any wiggle room for further manipulation. After about a month, he got an interim promotion as a manager in our department at a different campus, about 30 minutes away. It was a huge relief. It also opened up his position, which I immediately applied for. I was a shoo-in for his old position, and all the leadership knew it. The director, David, scheduled an interview for me, inviting every manager of each location to be on the panel, including Levi. Regardless, the interview went well, and I felt very confident. But Levi was wanting to make sure it wasn't going to be an easy process for her. The next day, Friday, at 5 p.m., David called me at home. He added my manager, Linda, to the call, and that said, "There's no easy way to ask this, but I got an anonymous tip. Have you ever been in any form of relationship with Levi?" I was shocked. I hadn't told a soul, which meant Levi did. I figured the cat was out of the bag, and I had done nothing wrong, so I ended up telling David and Linda everything. They were both shocked and disgusted. Linda was so angry she couldn't speak. David was so disgusted he said he wanted to take a shower. I felt so much validation, and it was so completely unexpected. David ended up telling me the anonymous tip was very close to my story, but had some key differences. Apparently, the person who made the tip made it against me, claiming that I was sleeping with Levi to get promoted. I'm still disgusted by that. David asked me to write him an email detailing what I said over the phone, including attachments of all my documentation, screenshots of texts, etc., and he would take it to HR. The investigation started pretty swiftly. The next Wednesday, the HR investigator called to interview me and spent an hour and 15 minutes on the phone with me. He said the absence of witnesses was unfortunate, but that my documentation was solid. While waiting for HR to complete the investigation, David was incredibly supportive. I couldn't believe it. His character was completely different than how Levi had described him, which, of course, now makes sense. David assured me that he never went against HR's recommendation, so he was going to wait for the investigation to be completed, about a week, then follow up with me. 2 days later, Friday, Linda called me into her office. It was done. David had fired Levi. He was gone. Completely. He turned in his keys, was banished from our establishment forever, and he was gone. I threw up my arms and loudly cheered, a reaction that surprised even me. The immediate sense of relief was overwhelming. I never again had to fear him showing up out of the blue, talking nonsense about getting me promoted, when the CEO of the company told David himself that he should promote me. And now, 4 months after this horrible ordeal began, I sit in Levi's old chair, at his desk, with my name now programmed into his old phone. The position he vacated is mine, and he doesn't even have a job. Frick that guy. Ladies, it's worth the risk to speak out. Ultimately, in retrospect, I wish I had gone to an authoritative figure I trusted who would take it to HR for me. I know the CEO would have 100% had my back, including other people in other departments. I was afraid to be buried, so I didn't do it myself. But had I confided in someone I trusted to not let it rest, I think it would have been okay. Regardless, justice has been done. Levi lost out on a $150K job because he wanted some poo-tang. What a frickin' idiot. Wow, he couldn't just move on, but he tried to destroy your reputation. I'm so glad it worked out for you. Ladies out there, even if you do not feel you can report for whatever reason, document. You never know when you might need to save yourself. One thing to note about HR protecting the company is that when it comes to protecting the company, that also includes sexual harassment cases. And if there is proof that someone is being a bit of a harasser, they're going to want to get rid of that person ASAP. Because there is nothing worse for the safety of a company than getting sued over a case of not dealing with sexual harassment. Now, of course, it is a case-by-case basis, so it would be stupid of me to assume that every HR is going to be as willingly helpful as this one's was. But let's move on to another terrible boss and a pathetic husband. Honestly, the supportive skills this man has is evident as the decent jawline of my face. I don't know. I'm not good at descriptive words sometimes. Boss fired me to save their skin and denied my unemployment benefits. A little backstory. I worked as an admin assistant, hourly, not exempt, for about 5 years in a small department in a large company. As it is a well-known company, that's all I will say. In late 2021, I was let go for insubordination when my former manager, we'll call them FM, sacrificed me to save themselves. It did not happen overnight, though. It began when my former supervisor, we'll call them Fuss, decided to retire. Fussy had been with the company for a long time and amassed many important duties. days after announcing their retirement. I came in one morning and saw Fussy's office was cleared out. Fumi came in later, outraged about a text from Fussy saying they would not be returning. I didn't feel I had the capacity to undertake the combined workload without help, so I asked if there were plans to replace the former supervisor. There was another manager in our department, but did not have much experience. I was given a firm no, because the former manager's reasoning was that the workload was manageable for one person. In order to keep up with my new responsibilities and not fall behind, I agreed to work overtime, attend meetings as needed, and basically become my former manager's personal scheduler, gopher, accountant, PDF converter, and secretary. As the months go by, it became abundantly clear that the former manager relied heavily on Fussy to complete certain tasks. So much that Fummy was not versed or even included in the process. Former manager was results-oriented, so it didn't matter how the job got done. It seemed like every day I was taking on tasks well outside my scope of knowledge or experience, including anything else the manager didn't want to deal with. Pretty soon, an extra hour of overtime a day became 50+ hours a week. I was attending more late-night meetings and putting my own responsibilities on hold. Don't get me wrong, I was well compensated but with constant overtime and stress, burnout sinks in quickly. I remember crying to my husband I was failing at my job and letting the manager down. He often dismissed my claims, telling me I needed to work harder or quit. Yeah, great man, really supportive, dick. Sometime later, I was contacted by an attorney about a big case that the former supervisor was working on. Without disclosing details, upper management and other important entities were involved. I heard the former supervisor talk about cases like this, but I've never been included in the process. I immediately sent an email to the manager asking for help. I didn't hear from them until I brought it up later that week. All the manager could do was shrug and say, "I don't know, can you Google it?" With no one to turn to for help, I make a Hail Mary pass to the attorney. The attorney is sympathetic and sends me detailed instructions along with an extension. The upper management watching closely, the manager is furious we're still not close to completion and threatens to pin the whole thing on me. I reiterate, I'm still struggling with many things, not to mention the sheer volume of the workload. The manager says if I came to them sooner, they could have asked a friend who works at another company to help us. I look at the manager in the eye and ask, "Are you telling me you can't help me because you don't know how?" In retrospect, I probably could have phrased that question less accusingly, but once you've passed the point of burnout, you have no sympathy for ignorance. After that, I start setting boundaries. No overtime, no late meetings, and weekly scheduled paid time off. 2 weeks after the attorney emails us to confirm the closing of the case, the former manager calls me into their office and hands me an attorney-drafted resignation. The document begins citing my insubordination, misconduct, and poor performance, including the big case we just completed, as justification for my termination. There's no severance pay, just a resignation to sign admitting fault. I look at the manager and ask, how is it reasonable for me to assume full responsibility of a task I've never been trained to do, and now I'm expected to take the fall for something my superior failed to oversee? The manager says nothing. I refuse to sign, so the manager tosses me my last check. Not knowing how long I'd be jobless, I immediately applied for unemployment and began job hunting. Even though we don't have kids or a mortgage, missing a few paychecks could break us. After a few failed interviews, my husband tells me about an opening at his job. I had my doubts, but this position is in a different department from him. I was immediately hired. I'm taking a small pay cut, but I can't complain. I set my own hours, and no one cares about my hair color. A week later, I receive the dreaded letter from the Department of Labor, stating my unemployment benefits were denied. I am livid, but my husband is relieved. He says not to dwell on the past and just be happy I'm employed. In the grand scheme of things, he was right. In less than 2 months, I got a new job with full benefits and, more importantly, less stress. That while our other friends and family were struggling from the pandemic and awaiting years of back pay, my unemployment claim was trivial. Again, who is your man? This man is a useless man. Like, I get being someone who likes to avoid confrontation, you're not comfortable with it, but he doesn't sound like that. He just sounds like he doesn't care about your issues. But don't worry, she's not alone. Mum comes over to help. Great work. My mum, on the other hand, believed otherwise. After reading the denial letter, she tells me, okay, let's get that appeals letter out. I was shocked at first, because mum is not the type to stir the pot. She said, listen, this company stole your time and your energy, and I'll be damned if we let them get away with it. Now, growing up, my mum always tried to instill us with good values like hard work pays off in the end, but watching me work myself to the bone while my husband gave no moral support was the last straw. She was absolutely right. I poured so much of myself into this job, refused paid time off to meet deadlines, catered to the manager's needs, took on tasks I had no business handling, only to be kicked to the curb for being unprofessional and insubordinate when I reached my limit. I told my mum, let's stir this Schmidt up. But now there was another problem. If I told my husband about appealing the denial, knowing how he is, he would try to talk me out of it. On the other hand, if I didn't appeal, I would walk away with nothing. So I made a deal with myself. If we were unable to reverse unemployment's decision, then I could move on, knowing that we gave it a shot. If the decision was reversed, I would tell my husband everything. So Mum and I quietly moved forward with the appeals process. And the OP supplied us with some gorgeous quotes as to why this man's just he's the catch. He's a true catch. Here are some of the other gems my husband has said to me before I was fired. Sometimes you just gotta shut up and play ball. What do you mean you're taking a mental health day? You're just getting your hair colored. You're still working? It's past 7, 8, 9, 10 p.m. Be happy you're getting paid more. If you're so unhappy, just quit. I hate hearing you complain about work. Why are you still married to this douche? So let's join them in the appealing process, part 2. Things do not go well for someone. After submitting my request to appeal unemployment's decision, in my state, regular unemployment is paid out by the employer, I reach out to several friends who have experience with unemployment, including a fellow terminated coworker. In the denial letter, former manager states I was adequately trained to perform this job and was repeatedly reprimanded for my poor performance. There were no written warnings, documented verbal warnings, or suspensions, and I did not sign anything. As I didn't keep any work emails, I'm at a disadvantage to obtain hard evidence. I only kept a personal log of dates and events on my phone. I recruit a few trusted individuals to do some recon, and I learned 2 valuable things. Firstly, the manager has hired 2 employees in my place. Also, the big case that was closed, and the reason I was terminated, had been reopened due to further issues. It seems that the attorney blew the whistle on the former manager, and with no one left to take the hit, upper management is blaming them. So essentially, really stupid idea to fire them. On the day of the appeals hearing, the appeals officer begins with the former manager and I being sworn in. First up is Fumi's testimony, and the appeals officer asks Fumi my job title prior to separation. Right off the bat, Fumi lies by saying that I was the supervisor. The appeals officer asks what my day-to-day tasks were, and Fumi lists off maybe 3 or 4. I'm sure they just conveniently forgot to mention the other myriad of duties I absorbed from the former supervisor. Appeals officer asks what kind of help did Fumi offer. Fumi goes on to say they didn't offer help, prioritizing my workload because they have a hands-off approach. What a skilled way to say I don't know how to help. The appeals officer asks for documentation to prove my misconduct was addressed. Fumi replies, no, it was all verbally. Now we get into the nitty-gritty of what led to my termination, the big case. As anticipated, Fumi is digging their own grave by making dismissive comments. Oh, it isn't that hard to figure out A, B, and C. I can't be holding her hand the whole time. And of course, I'm busy too. The appeals officer asks for other examples of my insubordination, and Fumi brings up an incident when my pay time off was denied and I refused to come in. But the appeals officer immediately dismisses Fumi's claim after hearing why. Long story short, our company policy dictated bereavement was only for immediate family, so I requested a week off to attend my grandmother's funeral and help sort out her estate. Fumi denies my request because we were swamped with deadlines. I firmly tell Fumi I wouldn't be in for the first 2 days of my requested paid time off, but would come in for the remainder of the week. Of course, no write-up and no incident report on file. For my testimony, I state for the record my job title was always admin assistant. There was no promotion, no pay rise, just more responsibilities. The appeals officer asks why I was not keeping up with my workload. I tell the appeals officer that Fumi would not hire another employee because the workload was enough for one person. Right away, Fumi interjects, "That's a total lie!" Moving on, I tell them I went to Fumi for help many times. Ultimately, nothing was taken off my plate because everything is a priority. Fumi interjects a second time. She's lying again. The appeals officer threatens to remove Fumi if they speak out of turn a third time. Then I hit the appeals officer with the recon info. Fumi asks angrily, "Who told you this? How did you find out?" And the appeals officer ejects Fumi from the hearing. My anxiety levels drop, but the appeals officer gives no inch. I'm feeling demoralized after hearing the appeals officer repeat, "So the job didn't get done." In the end, it boils down to the fact that the job wasn't thoroughly completed, including the big case. The appeals officer says to expect a response within 5 business days. Before you know it, a month has passed and I am losing confidence. My fellow terminated coworker discloses the unabridged narrative of their termination, their experience with employment, unemployment, and offers me a bit of hope. They tell me if the appeals officer was so convinced I endangered the welfare of the company, unemployment would have sent that denial letter within a week. Since I proved Fumi lied about my job title, the appeals officer would be forced to look into the rest of their testimony. Finally, a letter from Department of Labor arrives, and it reads in big letters, "Ruling. The unemployment insurance decision is reversed." Yes, our efforts have paid off, and my mum is overjoyed. After a few days, I sit my husband down and tell him about my unemployment benefits being approved. He asks how the denial was reversed, and I show him all the letters. I point out the excerpt where unemployment agrees with what I was saying all along. The amount of work was more than a reasonable person could handle. At first, he is receptive, asking about the appeals hearing and happy that the former manager was removed for their outbursts. Then comes the million-dollar question. Why did I keep all of this a secret? I tell them that I was worried he would try to dissuade me, and I would be walking away from the chance of reaping my benefits. Understandably, he is hurt I didn't share this with him, but given his opposition from the get-go, his general reaction is more or less indifferent to the outcome. I own up to my poor judgment and promise not to withhold any more news, good or bad. And now, I have the displeasure of dropping another bomb on him. Can we all collectively agree that it is stupid that she hasn't also put down some divorce papers or something? She went behind your back because you were dissuading her otherwise. She wins this thing that you were implying was going to be pointless to do. And your response is, "Oh, okay. You shouldn't have lied to me, though." Dude, what? Now that I've reversed unemployment's denial, I tell my husband I would like to look into meeting with an unemployment attorney to go after my unpaid pay time off, and hopes he will be supportive. He is furious with me. On top of all our bills, now we have to worry about legal fees? The look on his face is betrayal. First unemployment benefits, now unpaid pay time off. When is this going to end? When will it be enough? He stormed out of the room and did not speak to me for 3 days. Finally, he tells me he does not agree with my choice, but he will stand by whatever decision I make. Now that the unemployment decision has been overturned, each party has 30 days to reopen appeals decision by presenting additional information. Several weeks after, another letter from Department of Labor arrives. My heart is racing, seeing my former employer's name under the reopening applicant title. I open the letter to see in bold print, "The reopening request is hereby denied." Apparently, unemployment stated the information former manager submitted for review was not substantial. I showed the letter to my husband, and now that he is seeing my former job grasping at straws and sending unemployment on a witch hunt, he is on board with me meeting the employment attorney with me. Please note, we haven't met with the employment attorney as of the date this has been posted, but let me know if anyone is interested in part 3. How you doing? Still alive? Thanks. Now, this isn't necessarily a part 3, but more so a side quest as they call it. But it's a great experience of seeing them confront the manager after all this. It's beautiful. You'll love it. Following the events of part 2, my boss announces their new 401k program for all employees. We meet with the financial advisor and they give me their business card. I look at the address. I show the address to my husband. Eyes get wide. Their office is in the same building as my former employer. Without missing a beat, I tell our financial advisor, "We'll be glad to meet you at your office. Are you available 1 week from today?" Things could not have lined up better, but my husband is hesitant. He tells me we should skip the in-person meeting. No, sir. After everything that happened between the former manager and I cannot pass up this opportunity to walk back into my old building with my head held high. The day of the meeting, we pull into my old parking lot and make our way inside. No sign of the manager. I run into some former co-workers and say hi before getting into the elevator. The meeting lasts about an hour or so. On our way out, my husband suggests we not dilly-dally and leave as quickly as possible. Now, to avoid any possible demonetization bot scanning of these videos, I'm talking about cats now. I love cats. Cats are great. Love cats. Cats are really cute. Cats, kitties, pussy cats, very nice. This guy here is a pussy. Cats, kitty cats, very nice kitty cats. I'm slightly disappointed by the anticlimactic ending, but all that changes as soon as we reach the first floor. Former manager is standing in the lobby. He sees me, and the look on their face is priceless.
What the hell are you doing here?
Oh, I was here on business, but now I'm leaving.
You've got some nerve showing your face in this building. Do you have any idea the trouble you've caused this company? To me?
I'm not proud to admit I've fantasized about this moment many times in my head, almost to the point of obsession, to which my husband does not condone. So, with a smug look on my face, I reply, "I missed the part where that's my problem." Before we exchange any more words, we make a beeline for the exit. My husband scolds me in the car. "You know, you could have just ignored the manager and not said a word." I don't care. I told off my schmitty boss, and no one can take that away. I don't know about you, but that just immediately makes me think of Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man when he lets that guy into the elevator. But oh wee, what a rounded dish that was served cold, but the spice in it just really heated it up. Of course, the comments do nothing but just point out the terrible husband in this. And look, I mean, I know we can say that it's annoying for people to say dump his ass all the time, but this is, I mean, come on. The dude's a dick. Nothing else to say about that. Overall, there are bosses out there that suck, no surprise, but either way, I hope you enjoyed today's video. Been a lot of fun with this one. Love your face if you made it this far in. Thank you as always for sticking by. And yeah, I hope to see you for another one. Until then though, bye-bye.